Tonight,
President Trump, sir.
the Turkish head of state at the White House. We examine the meeting between Presidents Trump and Erdogan. Plus, kids caught up in the conflict as the war in Ukraine wages on.
Stand with us, pray for us, for innocent children who being held hostage.
The mission to save Ukrainian children held in Russia. And a shutdown stalemate?
I think you could very well end up with a closed country.
With less than a week to go before the government funding deadline, is the prospect of a deal off the table? All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. President Trump issues a public demand at a White House meeting with his Turkish counterpart. Good evening from CBN's Washington News Bureau. I'm John Jessup. Well, in a face-to-face meeting that could have ripple effects across the Middle East and Europe, President Trump reissued his call for Turkey to quit buying oil from Russia. Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan made his first visit to the White House today since 2019. At the top of his agenda, a push to buy American fighter jets. President Trump banned Turkey from the F-35 program during his first term, citing concerns over Turkey's relations with Russia. This afternoon, Mr. Trump indicated he could lift that ban as early as today. He also said he sees Erdogan as a crucial partner in brokering peace in Gaza and Ukraine.
Everybody respects Erdogan. They really respect Erdogan. I do. And I think he could have a big influence if he wants to. Right now, he's very neutral. He likes being neutral. So do I like being neutral. But he's somebody that if he got involved, the best thing he could do is not buy oil and gas from Russia.
Turkey remains a key but complicated ally, relying on Russia for energy while still anchoring NATO's southern flank. Since January 2023, Turkey has purchased more than $90 billion in Russian coal, oil, and natural gas, making it one of Moscow's biggest customers. The White House is hoping today's talks can ease tensions and rest relations with Ankara. Well, joining me now is Sinan Ciddi, Director of the Turkey Program at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Sinan, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I want to start off by asking you in broad terms, can you talk about the significance of this meeting? Why was it so important?
Right. So it's important to say that President Erdogan of Turkey has been seeking to meet with the U.S. president since he last met with the U.S. president, which was Donald Trump back in, I believe it was 2017 or 2018. I'm not exactly sure of the last date. It has been quite some time. And it is a meeting which he has sought, and this is a meeting that is more important for Erdogan. But I would say there are significant sort of policy implications and national security implications which are equally as significant and important for the United States, particularly as they apply to issue areas such as Syria's future, where we do have US troops, and issues of security that we're interested in. But also we're interested in obviously ending the conflict in Ukraine, where Turkey is also promising that it can play an important role, as well as wider concerns over issues of Mediterranean security, as well as the future of Israel's interests in the wider Middle East. So this has been an important sought-after meeting, and it was only put on the books as of last Friday. So it's been quite a sort of whirlwind since it was announced.
Sinan, before they went into the private meeting, the president did say to the media that he and Erdogan would be talking about the sale of F-35 fighter jets to Turkey. You have said that should not happen. Can you explain why?
Correct. I think I represent one constituency in this city, as in Washington, D.C., as in there are a number of our organizations and a perspective in this town, as well as numerous members of the United States Congress and the political establishment in this country, which say selling an F-35 war platform to Turkey is particularly dangerous. And I'm not the only one, simply because the F-35 is unlike any other weapons platform that we seek to sell Turkey and other allies, simply because Turkey is an ally probably only in name only, simply because Turkey is or has been undermining U.S. national security interests for a considerable amount of time. On the top of our sort of list of grievances that we have against Turkey is a premier supporter of US designated terrorist organizations, notably Hamas. But Turkey has also been undermining our war efforts, our efforts to essentially undermine and contain Russia's war effort in Ukraine. We also believe that Turkey is essentially not a credible ally with our Israeli ally in the Middle East. but we also think Turkey is essentially threatening Mediterranean security and undermining Mediterranean security with other NATO allies, specifically inside of Eastern Mediterranean shores such as Greece and Cyprus. But we also have to say, specifically, Turkey has been enabling Russia's war effort against Ukraine. And if you add all these up, what we're concerned about is if you sell a stealth platform such as the F-35, this is a vastly different platform than any other platform that we have, such as the F-22, the F-16 or F-15 or other platforms. These are like fourth generation fighters, which, by the way, we have agreed to sell Turkey in the past, notably the F-16. The Turks are allowed to buy that. But the F-35 we want to hold off on because that is a strategic platform that we reserve for our most trusted allies. And we essentially want to make sure that we trust that would be used for the right purposes, not to antagonize and attack our closest allies. And we think we have some strong reservations against Ankara.
Sinan Jidi with Foundation for Defense and Democracies. I wish we had more time. Thank you so much for your time and your insights tonight. Well, Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas addressed the United Nations General Assembly today, calling for an end to the war in Gaza while blasting Israel for, quote, using starvation as a weapon. The 89-year-old delivered his speech by video after the U.S. government denied Abbas's request for a visa. Abbas also condemned Hamas and the October 7th attacks, looking to draw a line between the two sides.
These actions do not represent the Palestinian people, nor do they represent their just struggle for freedom and independence. We have affirmed, and we will continue to affirm, that the Gaza Strip is an integral part of the state of Palestine, and that we are ready to bear full responsibility for governance and security there. Hamas will not have a role to play in governance.
Abbas's appearance comes as the United Kingdom, Canada, and France join the growing list of nations recognizing a Palestinian state, a move President Trump called a gift to Hamas. Well, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu arrives in the United States today, getting his chance to address the United Nations General Assembly tomorrow. He'll then meet with President Trump on Monday. The trip coincides with retaliatory strikes on Yemen today after a Houthi drone injured more than 20 people in the Israeli resort town of Eilat Wednesday. CBN's Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem.
The drone, videotaped from multiple angles on social media, slipped through Israeli defenses and left at least 22 people wounded, 2 seriously. Defense Minister Israel Katz said the Houthi terrorists refused to learn from Iran, Lebanon, and Gaza and will learn the hard way. Whoever harms Israel will be harmed sevenfold. Before leaving for New York to address the UN General Assembly, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu delivered a message to the people of Israel and denounced those calling for a Palestinian state.
At the UN General Assembly, I will speak our truth, the citizens of Israel, the truth of the IDF soldiers of our country. I will denounce those leaders who, instead of denouncing the murderers, rapists, and child burners, want to give them a state in the heart of the land of Israel. This will not happen.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio told CBS News that the declaration stopped the ceasefire hostage negotiations.
It actually derailed, it made Hamas, talks that were going on, it made it even harder to get Hamas to enter into concessions that might have brought this to an end.
After President Trump's speech at the UN on Tuesday, he met with Arab and Muslim leaders. He presented a plan to end the war in Gaza and reportedly said he would stop Israel from declaring sovereignty over the biblical heartland of Judea and Samaria. Oren Seliger of the Yessa Council, a group representing communities in Judea and Samaria, told CBN News that declaring sovereignty is a way to stop a Palestinian state.
We have to basically end that dream and end that fantasy. The way to do that is to make it clear that we are here and we are here to stay. We do that by declaring sovereignty on Judea and Samaria.
Now all eyes are on Netanyahu's speech on Friday and a planned meeting between President Trump and Netanyahu at the White House on Monday. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
All right, thank you, Chris. Well, with Russia's war against Ukraine well into its third year, President Trump has seemingly turned an about-face, now saying Ukrainian forces can reclaim lost territory and push Russian fighters out of the country. While meeting with Turkey's president today, President Trump called on Vladimir Putin to end the fighting.
7,818 people were killed last week, mostly military people, their people, and Ukrainians. More Russians, actually, than Ukraine, a little bit more. But it's such a waste of human life, and so he ought to stop. Putin ought to stop.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky echoed the call for Russia to end the war. In an interview with Axios, he issued a stark warning against the Kremlin.
First of all, they have to know where their bomb shelters are. If they will not stop the war, they will need it.
Zelensky noted Ukraine will not target civilians, telling Axios, quote, "We are not terrorists." Well, as the war drags on in Ukraine, so does the trauma facing tens of thousands of Ukrainian children held in Russia. Their plight is devastating, with reports of an online catalog where some of the kids are being sold. My Faith Nation co-host Jenna Browder brings us the story.
It's been more than 3 years since Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Among the victims are some 20,000 Ukrainian children taken by Russia, though many believe that number is much higher.
How did your kidnapping happen?
CBN has shared some of their stories, and in a bold move, First Lady Melania Trump recently gave a letter to Vladimir Putin, urging him to return them. The First Lady writing, "In protecting the innocence of these children, you will do more than serve Russia alone. You serve humanity itself. Such a bold idea transcends all human division, and you, Mr. Putin, are fit to implement this vision with a stroke of the pen today." Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky thanked the First Lady on X for her attention to one of the most painful and difficult issues of this war. President Trump also talked about it at the White House.
She loves children, and she hates to see something like this happening.
We understand that it's touched her heart, and it's very valuable for us Ukrainians that President Trump's wife showed Vladimir Putin that it's inappropriate. It is a crime for any country.
Mykola Kuleba is leading the fight to bring these children home. His organization, Save Ukraine, has rescued more than 800 so far, all of them indoctrinated with Russian propaganda, some even assigned Russian citizenship, adopted into Russian families, and now Kuleba tells us being sold online.
We have discovered an online catalog, literally a marketplace like Amazon for human beings, where Ukrainian orphans stolen from occupied territories are listed like products. You can filter by eye color, hair color, weight, even obedience. And this is not the dark web. This is out in the open. And this is the site for child traffickers and pedophiles run under the authority of Vladimir Putin.
Kuleba says Save Ukraine has found 300 children in this database who they're hoping to rescue. And once they're home, help them and their families get back on their feet through their rehabilitation program. For now, though, he and the rest of the world wait for a peace deal.
We asking you, stand with us, pray for us, for innocent children who being held hostage.
And these kidnappings have caught the world's attention. The United Nations says they constitute war crimes, and the International Criminal Court has issued a warrant for Vladimir Putin's arrest. Jenna Browder, CBN News.
Thank you, Jenna. Still to come, battle lines over government shutdown. What happens if Washington can't come together for a funding deal? Welcome back. Tuesday marks the end of the fiscal year, and as of now, Democrats and Republicans are in a standoff with neither side budging on a spending bill. The White House now warning federal agencies to prepare for mass firings if there's a government shutdown. CBN Washington correspondent Caitlin Burke joins us now with the ongoing budget battle. Caitlin, so Democrats say they won't make a deal without concessions on health care. So what exactly are they demanding?
John, they're pushing to reverse Medicaid cuts from July's One Big Beautiful Bill and extend expiring Obamacare tax credits. Democratic leadership had a meeting planned for this week with President Trump, but he canceled via social media, calling their demands unserious and ridiculous. Trump commented on the looming shutdown today.
This is all caused by the Democrats. They asked us to do something that's totally unreasonable. They never change. They want to give money away to illegally, people that entered our country illegally. They want to give them massive federal money. And we don't want to do that because it means everyone's going to just keep pouring back. Right now, we have absolutely perfect borders.
Republicans control the House and Senate, but funding bills require 60 Senate votes to pass, which means some Democrats will need to get on board. Democrats warn they won't cave to threats of mass firings and will continue to push back until they can save health care for everyday Americans.
Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. If the government shuts down, it's because they want the government to shut down. And now the Trump administration has made their intentions clear. They want to continue to fire civil servants who are hard-working American taxpayers. Because throughout the year, they've been firing civil servants who are hard-working American taxpayers. We will not be intimidated by these threats coming from the most extreme parts of the Trump administration. The Republicans have made their intentions clear as it relates to health care of the American people. They want to destroy it. Republicans have spent the entire year destroying the health care of the American people. Our position is clear. Cancel the cuts, lower the costs, save health care.
Republicans have proposed a stopgap bill that would keep the government running through November 21st. Spending would stay at current levels and no policy priorities are included, except for new security funding for each branch of government following Charlie Kirk's assassination. Meanwhile, Democrats are proposing a funding deal that would keep the government going through the end of October, but also includes money for their health care priorities. John?
We will be keeping an eye out. Thank you so much, Caitlin. Well, FBI Director Kash Patel says the gunman in yesterday's deadly attack on a Texas ICE facility searched for videos of the assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. Patel says the gunman, 29-year-old Joshua Yan, also researched apps tracking the movements of ICE agents and downloaded the list of Department of Homeland Security locations in a clearly targeted attack. Meanwhile, DHS facilities across the country are upping security measures in light of Wednesday's shooting, which they say represents an overall surge in violence against immigration officials. One detainee was killed. 2 others were injured when a gunman opened fire on an adjacent building in Dallas. Officials say the shooter acted alone. Bullets found at the scene contain anti-ICE messaging. Coming up, churches, a place for healing, but sometimes they can inflict pain. Navigating spiritual abuse and religious trauma, next on Faith. For many, church is a place to find peace and belonging, but for some, it tragically can be a source of pain. So-called church hurt has become a familiar phrase describing the impact caused by spiritual abuse or toxic environments. CBN's Brody Carter reports on navigating religious trauma and what it means to stay, walk away, or rebuild.
If people are hearing messages all the time about you're bad, you're a sinner, you're going to hell, you're the worst, that environment could be considered an abusive environment that could evoke a trauma response in an individual.
Dr. Catherine Keller is a therapist in Dallas, Texas. She tells CBN News the #1 issue clients bring to her is religious trauma.
What happens is I'm sort of like a plant that doesn't get the proper water or proper sunlight. It's still going to grow, but you kind of grow sideways doing the best you can. But you're having to accommodate for these outside forces that are telling you how to think, who they think you are.
Keller adds the definition of church hurt is broad, typically stemming from experiences of fear, control, or shame within controlling spiritual environments.
Healed people will also help heal people. And that's the beauty of the family of God, is that we can simultaneously be hurt and healing at the same time as we live together in unity.
Author Natalie Runyon understands that struggle. As a pastor's kid who grew up serving in church, she considered walking away after her father had to resign from his position. Studies show more than 1 million Americans leave the church each year, many never returning.
you know, I always kept going back. Even when I would get hurt by a church, I never left the church. I never isolated. I always had women and pastors around me that were constantly reminding me of the goodness of the Lord.
Natalie says during that experience, her faith took a new turn. What began as a personal journey became her platform, and eventually the book, Raised to Stay.
That was actually one of the biggest criticisms that I got when I would hashtag Raised to Stay. People would say, are you telling us to stay in abusive, toxic environments? And the answer was absolutely not. What I'm doing is saying that if you find yourself in that, get out, but hold on to Jesus. Remain with Jesus. John 15, remain in me and I will remain in you. Stay with me and I will stay with you, to give you discernment to know, hey, you've got to get out of here and go somewhere healthy.
Although they took different paths, both Natalie and Dr. Keller say separating faith from toxic structures led to a stronger, more honest relationship with God.
God had always been faithful to me. He had always shown up. He had always been the father he said he was going to be. So yes, all these people had failed me. But when I looked back over the course of my life, God never had. So it was either turn away from the one who had never failed me because of a few people who did, or stay in position with him and let him do what his word promised.
Brody Carter, CBN News.
Thank you, Brody. When we come back, the student-led revival movement sweeping the country is far from over. We show you one of the latest spots where organizers say they feel the presence of God.
Download the CBN News app. One place for all of your news. Breaking news alerts. Watch CBN News Channel Live. CBN News, because truth matters. Get the CBN News app today.
Finally tonight, the college revival movement has hit another campus, this time Pennsylvania's University of Pittsburgh. Organizers say nearly 600 people attended Pitt for Jesus, which included worship and student athletes sharing stories about their faith. More than 65 people dedicated their lives to Christ and 80 were baptized. Pitt Purpose, the group that hosted the event, described it as nothing short of revival, where the presence of God was tangible. And we have certainly been documenting that move across college campuses for over the past year. Well, that's going to do it for Faith Nation. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you right back here again tomorrow night.